even though I have it. Right about now, some of you might be asking yourself, so what is dyslexia? I'm glad you asked. Let me introduce you to Sheila Blanford. It's going to be in a video in a second, I promise. I found Sheila online while I was researching for tonight, and I asked her if she would sit down with me for a few minutes and answer a few questions and help us unpack dyslexia. Oh, here's my beautiful family. I'm sorry, let's get All right, so I'm here with Sheila Blanford, and Sheila, I just want to say thank you and how much I appreciate you stopping in and just talking with me for a little bit. Could you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes. Well, my name is Sheila Blanford, and I am, by my education, I am a speech pathologist, and I have worked, well, I'm retired now, but I worked for 40 years for public school in Boyle County in Danville, and I found that many of my speech students were also the same children who were in special reading at school and became interested in dyslexia and the connection between speech and reading. And so now I am semi-retired, and I test and I tutor for dyslexia.
I know it's really hard to just summarize what is dyslexia, but whether it was coming from a scientific standpoint or a brain or just in general, could you just kind of tell us a little bit about dyslexia?
Right, it is a neurological issue. It is the way information is processed in the brain. Not that there's anything wrong with your brain or anyone's brain, but it's a difference. It's the way the information is processed. It's a sound and a language processing issue, and hence that's how, as a speech pathologist, I have become involved in this. The number one thing is that people who are dyslexic have average intelligence, oftentimes above average, because they have to compensate, they have to work extra hard to be able to do the things that they do. And yet, they struggle, especially with literacy areas like reading, writing, spelling. They're generally better at math. Math is more black and white, they understand it better, they can learn to read, but they need to be taught in a different way.
Could you walk us through maybe like a few misconceptions when it comes to dyslexia?
Kids themselves just think they're dumb. If I can't do what everybody else is doing, then I must not be as smart as the other children. And I've tested a number of twins, and one will have dyslexia and one will not, and then they just consider themselves the dumb one, and so they struggle with that. A lot of times when I get a phone call, they'll say, well, they said they're going to hold him back. It doesn't help. It doesn't help just to do it over again, louder. If you don't change something about how you're going about teaching them, then you're not going to go anywhere, and they're just going to be a year behind. And that's very embarrassing to them. They know, it's not productive, generally speaking, to repeat a grade. Another myth is that they see things wrong. They don't see any differently, and a lot of parents take their children to the eye doctor because they think there's something wrong with their eyes. So they check out their eyes and no, there's nothing wrong. The whole BD thing. And it's not that they see them any differently, they simply don't remember which way they go. And they have a 50-50 chance, so they get it right some of the time, so they're very inconsistent, and then you think, oh, he's got it, but no, then he's not.
Now there are probably some parents out there tonight that may you're probably the specialist in talking to parents, and you're probably one of the first people that they might call just with questions. Could you just kind of talk to the parents and any tips or encouragement, just like what's that next step?
I do get a lot of calls from parents. Most every day I get calls, and it is so frustrating for them because oftentimes they know that there's something going on and they don't know what it is. In school, oftentimes they're told, oh, he's okay, he'll be all right. The doctor will say, he's okay, he'll be all right. But they just know. And a big thing a big red flag is, with school is, it just shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard. You shouldn't have to spend every single night an hour working on those spelling words and come in and take the test on Friday and maybe do okay, but by Monday you've forgotten them. If you can see those things early and investigate it early. There are a lot of programs out there, and there are a lot of interventions at school, but if it's not a program that is specific to dyslexia, they're still going to struggle.
Okay, so I talked to Sheila for probably about an hour that day, and she helped answer a lot of my questions, because I came in this almost having more questions than when I started. If anybody ever wants any of that footage, I'm a videographer, video editor. I could probably help you out with that. I work each day as a filmmaker, and in that job, I help tell people stories. And story is at the heart of any film. A few years ago, I was working on a video for Southeast, and we were trying to explain that concept of story to the audience. I'd like to quote Shane Suter from that video. Shane is the former creative director at City on the Hill production in Louisville, and he had to say this: all good and lasting stories are built the same. Stories are told through the hero, the one who lives the story. Stories are about deliverance, the journey that redeems the hero in their world. The purpose of the story is new life, as the actions of the hero ensure that nothing will ever be the same again. The hero. Why does every good story have one? Why do we all long to be one? What is a hero? Luke is a hero when he rescues the Republic. Moana is the hero when she returns the heart of Te Fiti. It's a spoiler, sorry. Captain Miller is the hero when he gives his life to ensure Private Ryan makes it home safely. Dorothy is the hero when she kills the Wicked Witch and returns the broomstick. Now these are all movie heroes, but real life heroes exist as well. The story of so many people with dyslexia wouldn't come to a happy ending if it weren't for these real life heroes. A teacher that finds a way to adapt a lesson to a child instead of adapting a child to a lesson. They are a hero. A parent who encourages and inspires their son or daughter to focus on their strengths instead of worrying about that perceived weakness. They are a hero. Any everyday person who chooses daily to focus less on their struggles and find a way to achieve their goals. They are a hero. In my life, I've had some of these heroes. I was diagnosed with dyslexia at an early age. My preschool teachers noticed that I had problems with certain tasks, and so they were my heroes and my advocates at that time. My parents had me observed by psychologists to see what the issues were. So they were heroes who didn't hide behind fear that something may be wrong with their child. In kindergarten and first grade, I was placed in special education classrooms at Ackerman Elementary, and Miss Pendola, the teacher's assistant, was instrumental in my early education. She was always so kind and patient with me in a time that I was so confused as to why I was so different than all my friends. She was a hero that let her patient actions guide my path. Through the rest of elementary school, I would try to work hard to stay in the regular classroom so I could blend in and avoid questions from my peers. It was always my thought that I worked just a little bit harder, that I could get back into the classroom with my friends. I would come home most nights and work for hours on my schoolwork, spelling words, English homework, and multiplication tables. On those long nights, my parents were there to save the day by my side. It was during those same years that I became obsessed with dinosaurs and artifacts and ancient civilizations. I wanted to be an archaeologist, at least until I found out that you had to read so much and retain all of it. So that quickly fell by the wayside, but not before my mom arranged for me to help out with an archaeological dig in Petersburg. After archaeology interest was gone, my mom got me into modeling when I was in the 4th grade. Now, I don't know if you got the McAlpins and Van Loonen's ads back in the 90s, but if you think I look familiar, you're right. I should have probably had some pictures, but I don't. I was the really, really good-looking kid in Dockers, button-your-fly shirts, and more windbreakers than I care to tell you about. Modeling gave me a few things, but most importantly, it gave me confidence. In the midst of growing up dyslexic, it gave me that confidence that I was striving for. The agency I modeled with would occasionally send me to auditions for commercials too. Most auditions consisted of them giving me a script in about 15 minutes to read, memorize, and speak lines back. Needless to say, I didn't get a lot of callbacks. There was one audition during my 7th grade year that required no script at all and no memorization. They talked me through some scenarios and I was able to improv the scenes, and that day I actually got a callback. The movie was called Milk Money, starring Ed Harris and Melanie Griffith. Let me read you the synopsis. 3 young boys at a pool party pool their money together to pay V, Melanie Griffith, a kindergarten, kind-hearted lady of the night. Don't worry, it's PG, I promise. You can take your kids to this. Afterwards, she drove them home to the suburbs, but her car breaks down. It's just as well, though, because a mobster named Walter, Malcolm McDowell, is after her, and V realizes the suburbs are the perfect place to hide, but things get a lot more complicated when V falls in love with Tom, Ed Harris, a single father who is unaware of her real profession. Now, I was cast as one of the classmates of the 3 boys. You have a hard time finding me in any of those scenes, which is why I don't have you pictured right now. This experience gave me $60 a day and 2 weeks out of school, so it was a fair bargain. While I thought the money and the coolness factor were awesome, working on the movie set ended up being so much more. It ended up becoming a catalyst for my future career. I remember while filming one scene where I was in line with other students waiting to get into the bathroom, the director of photography for that scene was wearing a Steadicam. I can show you what a Steadicam looks like. There you go. You've probably seen it before if you've watched any behind the scenes. A Steadicam is a camera rig that is kind of like a vest, and the operator has this robotic arm connected to it, and no matter how you move, it keeps the camera really steady. It was pretty much the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And it turned my curiosities towards filmmaking. So the willingness of my parents to be heroes fueled what could have seemed like a strange modeling curiosity. Later turned into a pivotal point to get me to where I am today. Around that same time in my life, soccer also became a major curiosity for me. Soccer camps every summer, clinics during the winter. I was given an opportunity to excel. You see, with schoolwork, even though I worked really hard, I still only felt average, or sometimes below average. But with soccer, I realized the harder I worked, the better I became. And it became an escape for me and a passion. Eventually, this passion for soccer would open up opportunities for me down the road. With a strong interest in filmmaking and soccer, I headed into high school. I felt like I could make it in the regular classes without being in special ed, or at least that's what I told myself. While working in the library my freshman year, I wandered into one of the back rooms where the school's media equipment and news was broadcasted. One look into that room with the cameras, controls, buttons, with the lights behind them, and I knew I had to be a part of it. It was unusual for a sophomore to get into a media class because it was reserved for upperclassmen. But my hero that year, aka my mom, wouldn't take no for an answer. If you knew her, you would understand. So she knew I had found something that I was passionate about, and she wasn't afraid to be persistent on my behalf. My sophomore year, I got in the school's media team and poured myself into everything I could get my hands on. I became obsessed with learning how to take ideas, figure out shots, and edit things together. Being fully aware of my dyslexia, I took those skills and I would talk to my teachers. So anytime I had a paper that I would do, I would just kind of talk to my teachers and say, hey, instead of this paper, I can meet those same requirements, but why don't I shoot a video for you? And a lot of times they would be like, sure, whatever. And we'd roll the TV in there and play my video. And finally I was getting that positive reinforcement that I had craved for so long. Eventually I graduated from high school with a 2.0. I had 3.0 written down here, but I had to change it. It was really a 2.9. Anyways, we round up, right? With film experience, a soccer scholarship to Milligan College waiting for me. Milligan is a small liberal arts Christian college in the mountains of East Tennessee. They had the 2 things I was looking for, a soccer team and a communications program. The start of my college career was filled with ups and downs. On the soccer field, I was playing well and even scored a goal to help my team into overtime of the conference final. We even went on to win that final. But off the field, it was a different situation. My GPA after the first semester was a 1.56. Yeah. Neither my parents nor my soccer coach were too impressed. You see, Milligan prides itself on its humanities program. And humanities incorporates history, philosophy, literature, and fine arts. It's a required course for 6 hours a semester for the first 2 years at Milligan. And they pretty much use it to weed out anybody who's not serious about their education. Lots of reading, memorization, and comprehension, basically my nightmare. I had to find a new way to study and learn. And when I wasn't on the soccer field, I was in the library typing out my notes from what I had written down and just studying away. Luckily, over those 2 years, I had professors that were amazing. They would work with me, they would allow me extended times on my tests, they would read me the questions so I could understand them a little bit better, slowly raising my GPA up a little bit. At Milligan, I also wrote and directed my first student film and won Best Film at the Film Festival. After graduating, I took an internship at Southeast Christian Church in Louisville. It was a year-long paid internship where I joined a team in the worship department producing videos for the 18 to 20,000 weekly attenders. After my internship ended, I got a job at a church in Clearwater, Florida, where I worked for 3 years, kind of honing my skills. My wife, Leslie, we got married in Florida, and she graduated with her master's degree in occupational therapy. As you can imagine, being dyslexic and having a wife who's an occupational therapist makes our marriage really interesting. I've learned more about dyslexia and myself from my wife than I ever have from having her. I asked her to list a few of the things that she's learned to deal with since we've been married, and she said, making lists for groceries. If it's more than 4 items, it has to be texted to me or written down. Remembering names of people, it's never going to happen. Auditory processing, are you even listening to me? Remembering to finish a task that I said I would do, or multi-step directions. If it's routine, I get it, but if it's new or a list, I'm lost. She did say that I'm pretty helpful when it comes to our girls' math and work. We had our first daughter, Addie, in Florida, and decided to move closer to family up here in Kentucky. At the time, Southeast had an opening for a videographer and weekend video director. I applied and was hired on full-time. This position allowed me to use my broadcast skills on weekends, leading and directing volunteers in charge of the video booth, and passion for filmmaking to produce videos. Now, Southeast isn't really your stereotypical church. It's a mega church. It's got 6 campuses, and there are around 25,000 attenders to date now with all of our 6 campuses, and their videos there are held in very high regard. This is just gonna show some videos, stuff that we've shot while I talk. I currently work in the communications creative team. On this team, I'm able to focus on my passion for documentary filmmaking. I get to tell people stories of how God is working in their lives. The church has grown, and so has our department. We function like an advertising agency for the church. The communications department houses a team of graphic designers, a web team, a marketing team, a video department. I'm the senior video editor in the video department, working with 5 other videographers, 1 animator, a producer, a production supervisor, and a video director. We have 2 weekly TV shows that air on our local NBC affiliate and 1 on our Fox affiliate. Together, the shows average over 100,000 viewers per week. Our team produces around 500 videos a year, ranging from people's personal stories to creative pieces for the sermon. Southeast has given me the opportunity to travel with our team all around the U.S. and around the world. One week I could be in Boston filming a church plant, and the next week filming a Bible study curriculum in Israel. I always grew up thinking that dyslexia was a weakness and a frustration, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that dyslexia has actually given me a gift. It's given me the opportunity to pursue something that I'm passionate about and be lucky enough to make my career. My dad always told me and my siblings to find something that you love to do and do it. If I wasn't a video director, I'm not quite sure what I would be. I truly feel that God has given us all gifts, and we just have to identify those gifts and find ways to use them. He has a plan for me, and that's what's pulled me through all the reading, the tests, and the hard moments in life. I was listening to a TED Talk, kind of researching for tonight, from Dean Bragonier. He's the founder of Noticeability, a nonprofit that strives to change the world for people with dyslexia. And he said there are 4 vocations that dyslexic people excel at: architecture, engineering, entrepreneurship, and the arts. He actually said that MIT actually calls dyslexia the MIT disease. There are so many accomplished dyslexic people who have come before us, and I could go on and on, but I'll just list a few. Pablo Picasso, Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg, Muhammad Ali, Steve Jobs, Beethoven, John Lennon, George Washington, Einstein, Walt Disney, John F. Kennedy, Alexander Graham Bell, and I could go on and on. I would bet that each of those people had heroes that helped them achieve the greatness that they reached. As I close tonight, I'd like to encourage each of you to be a hero, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a grandparent, or just an onlooker to a child with dyslexia. While Superman and Spider-Man can captivate the minds of children, the real heroes, like you, are the most important heroes they will ever find in their lives. To the parents of kids with dyslexia, I especially want to speak to you. I know that you may be discouraged a little bit, but let me just encourage you with this. You have an amazing and gifted child. You may not have a little bookworm, and it's very likely that you won't see the spelling bee ribbon anytime soon. But that might be because God has something so much bigger for your child. And can I encourage you to continue to be their hero and advocate, to encourage you to support them in finding their true passion, that one thing that they were made for. As I said earlier, my wife and I have 4 amazing daughters, 2 of which were adopted from China. When we brought home our little Amelia, we found out after having her home for 6 months that she was deaf. We had lots of people speaking into us at the time because we were so discouraged. We were supposed to be the heroes for her, but we were having our own self-doubt. There was one person in particular that really encouraged me, an audiologist we were listening to online. I learned that this audiologist was born deaf, and she has cochlear implants, but she didn't let that stop her from a career that solely revolves around hearing. Seeing what she was able to accomplish gave me and my wife the hope that dreams can also come true for our little daughter. So when you think you don't have it in you to be a hero for your kids, I know I've been there on literally both sides. Let me show you a snippet of Amelia's journey from last year.
6 months after Amelia was home, we found out that she was severely deaf. So that was very devastating, and trying to figure out a plan for her and what that meant for her future and for our family. In January, she received her first set of hearing aids.
Maya, she can hear us.
Can she hear?
Maya,
Amelia!
she can hear me.
Yeah, she can. Amelia! And kind of gave it a trial run, but realized she wasn't getting what she needed from those. So she was a candidate for cochlear implant. So we went through all the steps to have that done. And in September, 2 years ago, she got implanted for the first time. Amelia!
R.
Good girl. And then we wanted to see if one would be enough, or if she would need implanted the second ear. So we waited about 6 months and decided that she wasn't hearing everything that we wanted her to hear to develop speech, all the speech sounds. So we got her implanted in May last year. And she goes to Heiser, the deaf school, 5 days a week. And she is doing amazing. She has exceeded all our expectations, her teachers, her therapists. She has progressed so quickly. She's typically developed in her speech as that of a 3-year-old. She's 4, so to just think that she's only been hearing for not even 2 years on the 1 ear, and the second ear was just a year this past May, so she's catching up very quickly. We're so proud of her hard work.
Say elephant, elephant. Say giraffe. Giraffe. Good girl.
Say backpack.
Backpack.
Say hi.
Hi.
Say I
I
love
love
mama.
mama.
What's this?
Cat.
Cat.
Bird.
Bird.
Dog.
Dog.
Fish.
Fish.
Pig.
Pig.
Tell your mama.
Where's your heart?
I'll be there.
Oh. I love you.
I love you, mama.
I love you most.
Love you most.
That was a snippet from a video that I helped put together last year because we adopted late last year from China again, Ayla, who's also deaf and has 2 cochlear implants now. But Amelia, what you didn't see in that video, Amelia is now out of Heiser hearing school and she's mainstream now. And she goes to school with her 2 older sisters, Addie and Avery. And it's, if I talk about it, I'm gonna get emotional. So, but just know that parents never give up because so many things can change if you just believe and keep pushing and advocating for your child. So sometimes even though in the story you're supposed to be the hero and you find out something about your child but you only think the worst, sometimes you get knocked back and you need a minute to regroup. And sometimes you don't know if you have the strength to save the day. But let me encourage you with this. Heroes always find a way to regroup. Heroes always find a way to get out of impossible situations, and most importantly, heroes always save the day. So, go be a hero.
Thank you. That was so good. See, it's like sight unseen. We chatted over the phone, and here he comes. That's amazing. Let's give him one more round of applause. I know it worked really hard for that. His mom even said he's really nervous, as any mom would. So, anyways, thank you so much. That was so nice. That was a great video, and anyways, good talk. We all need a hero, that's for sure. That's what we're trying to be, definitely. So I just want to thank you guys one last time for being here. Really, the money we raise, we try to raise legislation, and we try to change legislation, which we did. Adia came, so let's all give Adia a round of applause. Representative Wishner, she was a big champion in Frankfurt. But then we all still have this void of teachers that don't understand and students who need services, and so that's really why we're here raising money, is we're trying to be the champions for those students and those teachers that need the help, and just increase awareness and things like that. So I want to thank everybody. One last shout out. So if you don't know me, I have 4 kids. My oldest is 7. My life is crazy, and I take on this role as the president, and I go to London next week to the Global Dyslexia Summit. So I'm wrapped up in this dyslexia world, and it keeps moving, but my life happens too. So shout out to my husband for making life happen while I make this dyslexia stuff happen. I know it's not always easy, but one day he'll say no. For now, we're rolling with it. So. Anyway, so thank you guys. So we've got we'll take a 10-minute break while we organize the games. We're gonna close, so it's 7:55. So let's do 20 minutes, that makes it an even 7:15. Or 8:15. So at 8:15, we'll come back together. We're gonna close that red table then at about 8:10. I'll give you a little bit of a warning, like 1 minute if there's a competitive one. And then we're at 8:15, we're gonna come back into games. Okay, thank you.
it over? On that one, I am too? Okay. Yeah, I'm 85.
Right.
I had close by, but I'm in and out of town now all the time.
Right. You said you got
Goodie and wine basket.
This is like recording. How about that?